So this is a typical nerve cell. There are different parts of the nerve cell that we should know. Okay, these things that receive information are your dendritic spines or dendrites, and they gather information from other nerves or receptors, and they add up all the information. And we'll talk about the two different ways. It's either over space, they get to what this thing called a threshold is, which is a minimum level before they send the signal. Okay? So dendrites add up, add up, add up, add up. We reach threshold, and then they flip the switch. They're like, all right, send the signal. And this thing called the axon hillock sends a signal down the axon, and then we get to one of these synapses that you and I just discussed for a few minutes, right? And we looked at the synaptic cleft, and this was the presynaptic side, and this was the postsynaptic side. Here are our receptors. Okay, any questions so far?
Can you explain one more time? You said that when I was watching your video, you said there were ripples or something like that that go into the dendrites, right?
Mm-hmm. So
And
basically, the way it works is, let's say I've got something stimulating this dendritic spine right here, okay, and it's giving you a signal. I'm not going to send a message until my neuron hits a threshold, until there's enough of a signal. Let's say it's a receptor on my skin that's triggering this, and it's a tiny little fruit fly that's on my skin. Well, if it's not moving around and it's not heavy enough, I'm probably not going to sense it because this signal is never going to elicit enough of a response in the cell body. Okay, it has to go from resting membrane potential, which is negative 65 millivolts,
yeah,
to threshold, which is roughly 40. Yeah, or no, yeah, negative 40. Sorry,
you said positive 40 and negative.
that's different. That's the equilibrium potential for sodium. That's a different thing. We'll talk about that later. Anyway, so once it reaches threshold, then this thing called the axon hillock, which is right about here in the cell body, right where the cell body meets the axon, we've got a high cluster of sodium channels. And whenever these ripples reach these high cluster of sodium channels called the axon hillock enough, whenever we got, a fly heavy enough, then the signal gets sent down through the action potential. We'll discuss that later. Okay? So the other way was, instead of just the same spot being hit over and over, let's say there was a couple flies, or a bigger fly that was stimulating more than one receptor, and let's say over space, both of these ripples in a pond add up to give you a bigger ripple, which hits threshold. Do you understand what I'm saying? So either the same spot gets activated over and over and over temporally, or multiple spots add up to give you threshold. Once you get to threshold, you reach action potential, and it gets propagated down. And we'll go into detail. There's different slides for that. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. So right now, for this, we have the synaptic cleft, presynaptic side. This is the actual synaptic cleft right there, and postsynaptic side. On the postsynaptic side, we have these receptors. Those were the targets. Okay, that's where the purple dots were landing. And this is your membrane, and this is an ion channel. Okay, sometimes it's a channel. When that purple dot hits here, it opens a big hole in the cell, and stuff comes in or out. Other times, it's just a big protein that when the purple sphere binds, it causes changes inside. So that's basically it, the initial portion of the neuronal transmission. We get input through the dendrites. They get summed up in the soma at axon hillock. Well, the soma is the cell body, contains a nucleus and other important organelles. And then the electrical signal is propagated once the membrane potential reaches threshold, propagated down the axon to the presynaptic button. That will be the second half of this video. We covered all the way up to the axon hillock. Then we're going to go from axon hemlock to the actual release of the neurotransmitter in part 2. So make sure you check out the second part of this series and the other introductory neuroscience videos. Thank you and have a nice day.